The morning sun on Thalos Prime came through the windows like fire. Deho walked slowly across the metal floor of Outpost Kelar-7, carrying his toolbox. His left leg hurt a little, like it did every morning. The old injury never really went away. He was 52 years old now, with gray in his dark hair and lines around his eyes. His uniform was old and had been fixed many times with patches. He walked past the training yard where the Vrexian soldiers were doing their morning exercises. The Vrexians were tall warriors, much taller than humans. Their skin was covered in scales like reptiles. They were strong and proud, and everyone in the galaxy knew they were great fighters. Crix saw Deho first. He was a young Vrexian with dark red scales. He laughed and pointed at the human. The other warriors looked over and started laughing too. "Look, the human gardener is here," Crix said loudly. "Did you water your flowers today, old man?" Vorn, an older Vrexian with copper-colored scales, smiled. "Earth must be very desperate. They send us their broken and useless ones. What good is a human who can barely walk?" The other aliens at the outpost laughed along. Even some of the smaller species that the Vrexians usually looked down on joined in the mockery. It was safe to laugh at humans. Everyone knew humans were weak. Deho stopped walking. He looked at them for a moment with his calm brown eyes. Then he nodded his head politely and continued walking. He said nothing. He never said anything when they made fun of him. This made Crix even more angry. See? No warrior spirit at all. A real warrior would fight back, but humans just accept their weakness. Hela, a younger warrior with silver-gray scales, watched Deho walk away. She felt a little uncomfortable with the teasing, but she said nothing. Everyone knew their place on this outpost. Vrexians were the warriors, humans were the maintenance workers. That was just how things were. Deho reached his small work area in the maintenance bay. He put down his toolbox and changed into his work clothes. In the corner of the bay, he had created a small garden. Green plants grew in containers under special lights. He had tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. He watered them carefully every morning before starting his work. The garden was his peace. When he looked at the plants and touched the soil, he could forget about the war. He could forget about the screaming and the blood and the faces of people he could not save. The plants did not judge. They just grew if you took care of them. He worked through the morning, fixing pipes and checking the air systems. The work was simple and quiet. That was exactly what he wanted. After 20 years of war, he had earned the right to be simple and quiet. Nobody at the outpost knew his real story. They saw an old man with a limp who fixed things and grew vegetables. They did not ask questions. He did not offer answers. It was easier that way. At lunchtime, Deho sat alone in the cafeteria. He ate rice and vegetables from his garden. The Vrexian warriors sat together at their table, eating meat and talking loudly about their training. They were preparing for possible pirate attacks. Pirates often raided the mining operations on Thalos Prime. Commander Thale entered the cafeteria. He was the leader of the Vrexian forces at the outpost. His emerald green scales showed he was from a high-ranking family. Scars covered his arms and face from many battles. He was respected by all his warriors. Thale walked past Deho without even looking at him. To the commander, the human was just part of the furniture. Not important, not a warrior, just a worker. After lunch, Deho was working on a water filtration system when the alarm started. Not attack alarms. These were different. Medical emergency alarms. His body reacted before his mind did. 20 years as a combat medic had trained him to respond to those sounds. He dropped his tools and started moving toward the medical bay. Then he stopped himself. He was not a medic anymore. He was a maintenance worker. It was not his job, but his feet kept moving anyway. Old habits were hard to break. He followed the sounds to the biocontainment facility. This was where the Vrexians kept their special creatures. He had never been allowed inside before. It was for Vrexians only. The doors were open. Vrexian warriors ran in and out, their faces showing panic. Deho heard Commander Thale shouting orders. He heard fear in the commander's voice. That was unusual. Vrexians were not supposed to show fear. Daeho moved closer to the doorway and looked inside. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. A massive creature lay on the floor. It was a thornback, he realized. He had seen pictures of them, but never in real life. It was 12 feet tall, even lying down, with 6 powerful legs and a body covered in armored scales. Sharp spines ran down its back. Its eyes were usually bright amber, he knew from the pictures. But now those eyes were dull and gray. The creature was dying. Medical Officer Zena stood over the thornback with her equipment. She was the chief medical officer for the outpost, a Vrexian with pale blue scales. She looked terrified. "Commander, I have tried everything," Zena said, her voice shaking. "Nothing works. His temperature is dropping, his breathing is very weak. I do not understand what is wrong with him." Commander Thale knelt beside the creature and touched its massive head gently. "Ashkar," he said softly. "Old friend, do not leave us." The other warriors stood around with their heads down. Crix had tears in his eyes. Even Vorn looked broken. Daeho understood now. This was not just an animal to them. Thornbacks were sacred in Vrexian culture. They bonded with military units and became part of the family. Losing one was the greatest dishonor and the deepest grief a unit could face. Ashkar had been with Commander Thale's unit for 15 years. He had fought beside them in battles. He had saved their lives. They had saved his. They were family. "How long does he have?" Thale asked quietly. Zena looked down. "A few hours at most, maybe less. The nearest specialist is 3 days away. Even if we sent for them now, it would be too late." Thale closed his eyes. His hand stayed on Ashkar's head. "Then we must decide. Do we let him suffer for hours, or do we end his pain now?" The warriors looked at each other. None of them wanted to make that choice. But someone would have to. Daeho stood in the doorway watching. His medical training was analyzing everything he could see. The gray color of the scales, the way the creature's breathing was shallow and quick, the slight tremor in the legs, the glazed look in the eyes. He had seen these symptoms before, long ago, in another life, before he became a soldier, when he was just a young veterinarian treating sick animals on Earth. He knew what was wrong with Ashkar, and he knew how to fix it. The question was, should he say anything? These people had mocked him every day for 2 years. They had treated him like dirt. They had never once asked about his past or his skills. They had judged him without knowing anything about him. But as he looked at the dying creature and the grieving warriors, he knew he had no choice. He was a healer. That was what he had always been, even when he had to be a soldier. He could not watch something die when he had the knowledge to save it. He stepped into the biocontainment facility. "Excuse me," Daeho said quietly. "May I examine him?" Every head turned to look at him. The room went completely silent. They brought Daeho's medical kit from storage. It was an old metal case covered in dents and scratches. The paint was worn off in places. You could see where it had been repaired many times. It looked like it had been through a war. Because it had, Daeho opened the case carefully. Inside were instruments that looked strange to the Rexians. Some were clearly medical tools. Others had been modified. Some were built from pieces of different equipment. Everything showed years of hard use. He pulled out vials of medicine and checked the labels. He organized syringes and tubes. He set up monitoring equipment that combined human and alien technology. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Every movement had purpose. Medical Officer Zena watched with growing interest. "These modifications are clever." "You built some of these yourself?" "Yes," Daeho said, not looking up from his work. "In the war, we often had to treat alien species with equipment designed for humans. I learned to adapt. Sometimes you have to make do with what you have." He pulled out a small device and began calibrating it. "This measures toxin levels in real time. I built it during the Titan mining wars when we had workers getting poisoned by methane exposure. Same principle works for metal poisoning." Commander Thale stood in the doorway. "You said you were tired of war. Why did you keep all this equipment?" Daeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I knew that one day someone might need help, and I would not be able to walk away." He looked up at Thale. "I retired from being a soldier, but I never stopped being a healer." Thale nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand that he had been very wrong about this human. "It is time," Deho said. "Everyone except Medical Officer Zena must leave. She will assist me. The rest of you can watch from the observation room." The warriors filed out reluctantly. They went to the observation room where thick glass let them see into the biocontainment facility. Crix, Vorn, and Hela pressed close to the window. Commander Thale stood behind them, his face showing worry. Inside, Deho explained each step to Zena as he worked. "First, I need to establish an IV line for the chelation drugs. With a creature this size, I need 2 lines. One for medication, one for fluids." He found the right blood vessels in Ashkar's thick legs. His hands were steady as he inserted the needles. The thornback flinched but did not pull away. Somehow he seemed to understand that this human was trying to help. "Now the chelation drugs," Deho said. "This will bind to the metal particles in his blood. His body can then filter them out through the kidneys. But it is going to hurt. The process feels like fire moving through the veins." He started the IV drip slowly. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then Ashkar's whole body tensed. The thornback let out a roar of pain that shook the walls. His legs kicked. His tail thrashed. In the observation room, the warriors jumped forward. "Stop it!" Crix shouted. "You are killing him!" But Deho did not stop. He adjusted the drip rate, making it slower. He spoke to Ashkar in a calm, steady voice. "I know it hurts. I'm sorry, but you must endure this. Stay strong, friend. Stay with me." He placed one hand on Ashkar's head, right between the eyes. The touch was firm but gentle, grounding, reassuring. The thornback's wild movements began to slow. He was still in pain, but the human's presence helped him stay calm. Zena watched in amazement. She had never seen anyone handle a thornback like this. The combination of medical skill and genuine compassion was impressive. "His heart rate is too high," she said, checking the monitors. "I know," Deho said. He pulled out another syringe and injected a different medication. "This will help regulate his heart. But we need to watch him carefully. If his heart rate drops too low, we have a bigger problem." The hours crawled by. Deho never left Ashkar's side. He monitored every reading. He adjusted medication dosages constantly. He watched the thornback's breathing, his color, his reflexes. Every 15 minutes he gave another injection or changed an IV bag. The warriors took turns watching from the observation room. They saw a side of the human they never knew existed. The quiet maintenance worker was gone. In his place was a focused, skilled medical professional who knew exactly what he was doing. Vorn spoke quietly to Crix. "Look at his hands. So steady, so precise. I have never seen even our best medics work like this." Crix nodded slowly. "I was wrong about him. We all were." Around midnight, Ashkar began showing improvement. The gray in his scales was fading slightly. His breathing became a little stronger. The toxin readings on Deho's device were dropping, but Deho did not celebrate. He just kept working. "We are not done yet," he told Zena. "The chelation is working, but we still have hours to go. And the most dangerous part is coming." "What do you mean?" Zena asked. "As the toxins leave his system, his organs will try to process everything at once," Deho explained. "It puts massive stress on the heart and kidneys. That is when we might lose him." At 3 a.m, disaster struck. Ashkar's heart monitor suddenly screamed a warning. The thornback's eyes rolled back. His breathing stopped. His body went rigid. Cardiac arrest. In the observation room, warriors shouted and rushed toward the door. Commander Thale moved to go in, but stopped when he heard Deho's voice. It was not the quiet, polite voice they knew. This voice carried absolute authority. It was the voice of someone who had commanded in life-and-death situations before. "Stay back. Nobody comes in," Deho ordered. "Zena, prepare the cardiac stimulant." Maximum dosage, he was already moving. His hands found the right spot on Ashkar's massive chest. He began compressions, pushing with all his weight. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted steadily, keeping perfect rhythm. Zena handed him the syringe. Without breaking rhythm, he took it and injected it directly into Ashkar's heart. Then he went back to compressions. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. The monitor stayed flat. Ashkar did not respond. Zena put her hand on Deho's shoulder. "It is too late." "He is gone." "No," Deho said firmly. "Not yet." He kept working. Sweat dripped down his face. His arms burned with effort. But he did not stop. 7 minutes. 8 minutes. In the observation room, warriors had tears in their eyes. Their Ashkar was dead. The human had tried, but it was not enough. 10 minutes. Deho prepared another injection. One more time, he said. Come on, Ashkar. Come back to us. Your family is waiting. He injected the stimulant. Then he placed both hands on Ashkar's chest and pushed hard. Once. Twice. The monitor beeped. Then it beeped again. Ashkar's heart was beating. The Thornback took a deep, shuddering breath. His eyes opened slightly. He was alive. In the observation room, warriors cheered and hugged each other. Commander Thale put his hand against the glass, his expression showing relief and amazement. But Deho did not celebrate. He checked Ashkar's vital signs quickly. He adjusted the IV drips. He gave another injection to stabilize the heart. Only when the monitor showed steady readings did he finally sit back. Zena stared at him. That was incredible. You brought him back. I thought he was dead. He almost was, Deho said quietly. But we are not finished. The crisis has passed, but he needs constant monitoring for the rest of the night. The toxins are still leaving his system. We could have more complications. You should rest, Zena said. I can watch him for a while. Deho shook his head. I will stay. I started this treatment. I will see it through. He sat beside Ashkar, one hand resting gently on the Thornback's side. He spoke softly in Korean, words of encouragement and comfort. The creature's breathing was stronger now. The gray color was fading more from his scales. He was going to survive. As dawn approached, Deho finally allowed himself to feel tired. His back hurt. His arms ached. His old leg injury was throbbing. But Ashkar was stable. The worst was over. Commander Thale entered quietly. He approached and stood looking down at his Thornback. Thank you, he said simply. You saved his life. You saved my brother. Deho looked up at him with tired eyes. I just did what needed to be done. Thale shook his head. No, you did much more than that. You showed us that we have been blind. We judged you without knowing you. We assumed weakness where there was only peace. We saw an old maintenance worker when we should have seen a warrior who chose a different path. He performed the formal Vrexian salute. It was a gesture reserved for the highest honor. For warriors who had proven themselves in the most difficult circumstances. You have earned our respect, Deho, Thale said, and you have earned the right to know the truth about what you have done. In Vrexian culture, saving the life of a Thornback is the greatest honor. You are no longer an outsider to us. You are family. Deho did not know what to say. He had not expected this. He had just wanted to save a sick animal. Now somehow he had changed everything. Ashkar made a soft sound and turned his head to look at Deho. The Thornback's amber eyes were bright again, clear and intelligent, and in those eyes was something new. Recognition, respect, and the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives. For a long moment nobody moved. The Vrexian warriors stared at Deho like he had grown a second head. The human maintenance worker was standing in their sacred bio-containment facility. He was asking to touch their dying Thornback. Crix was the first to laugh. It was a harsh, angry sound. You? You want to examine Ashkar? What do you know about Thornbacks, human? What do you know about anything except cleaning pipes? Vorn stepped forward, his hand moving toward the weapon at his belt. You should not even be here. This is a sacred space. Leave now before you dishonor yourself further. Deho did not move. He kept his eyes on Commander Thale. I was a veterinarian before I joined the military. I worked with animals for 30 years. I have treated hundreds of species, including some that are similar to Thornbacks. I have seen these symptoms before. The room went quiet again. Medical Officer Zena looked at him with surprise. You were a veterinarian? I did not know this. You never asked, Deho said simply. Commander Thale stood up slowly. He was much taller than Deho, and his scales caught the light as he moved. His face showed grief and desperation and something else, maybe a small spark of hope. You say you have seen these symptoms before, Thale said carefully. What do you think is wrong with him? Deho moved closer to Ashkar. He knelt down beside the massive creature. Crix started to object, but Thale raised his hand for silence. The gray color in the scales, the shallow breathing, the tremors in the muscles, the way his eyes looked dull, Deho said, examining Ashkar without touching him yet. I treated a sick elephant on Earth once. It had the same symptoms, and several alien creatures during the war showed similar signs. I believe this is toxic poisoning. Zena shook her head.
Impossible.
We checked for all known toxins. We found nothing, and Ashkar has not been exposed to anything dangerous. Not biological toxins, Deho said. Metal poisoning. Heavy metals in the environment. They build up slowly in the body over time. By the time you see symptoms, the damage is already severe. Thale frowned. But where would metal poisoning come from? Ashkar lives here in the bio-containment facility. We control everything he eats and drinks. Deho looked around the room. His eyes stopped on the new metal panels on the walls. When did you renovate this facility? 3 months ago, Senna answered. We installed new walls and floors. The old materials were breaking down. Why? What kind of metal did you use? Deho asked. Senna pulled up information on her datapad. A new alloy. It was supposed to be stronger and last longer. It was recommended by the supply officer. Deho nodded slowly. That is probably the source. The alloy might be safe for Vrexians, but thornback biology is different. Some species are very sensitive to certain metals. The particles get into the air. The creature breathes them in day after day. They build up in the organs. Eventually, the organs start to fail. Hela spoke up for the first time. Can you prove this? Can you test for it? Yes, Deho said. But testing takes time. Time we do not have. If I am right, Ashkar needs treatment immediately. Every minute counts. Crick stepped forward again. And if you are wrong? If you touch him and make things worse? Ashkar is sacred to us. We cannot let an outsider, a human, perform treatments on him. Commander Thale looked down at Ashkar. The Thornback's breathing was getting weaker. His amber eyes had almost no light left in them. Thale had known this creature for 15 years. They had fought together. They had survived together. Ashkar was not just an animal. He was family. The commander faced his warriors. Zena, what other options do we have? The medical officer looked miserable. None, Commander. I have exhausted all my knowledge. The specialist cannot arrive in time. If we do nothing, Ashkar will die within hours, maybe sooner. Thale turned to Deho. You say you can save him. What do you need? First, I need to confirm the diagnosis, Deho said calmly. I need to examine him properly. Check his vital signs. Look at his eyes, his mouth, his scales more closely. Then I need my old medical kit from storage. And I need permission to treat him. Vorn spoke up angrily. Commander, you cannot seriously consider this. He is a human. A maintenance worker. He knows nothing of our traditions or our sacred bonds. This is madness, I know, Thale said quietly. But what choice do we have? Watch Ashkar die, or give this human a chance to save him? The room fell silent. Every warrior knew the commander was right. They had no other options. But accepting help from a human, especially for something so sacred, went against everything they believed. Thale made his decision. He looked at Deho with hard eyes. I will allow you to examine Ashkar. If you are lying to us, if you hurt him in any way, you will be expelled from this outpost in disgrace. Do you understand? I understand, Deho said. And I accept those terms. Then begin, Thale ordered. Deho turned to Zena. I need a scanner for vital signs, and a light so I can examine his eyes and mouth. Zena handed him the equipment without a word. Her expression showed she was not sure this was a good idea, but she was professional enough to follow orders. Deho approached Ashkar slowly. He moved with calm confidence, showing no fear. The massive thornback could kill him with one movement even in this weakened state, but Deho had worked with dangerous animals before. Fear made animals more nervous. Calmness helped them trust you. Hello, Ashkar, Deho said softly. I am going to help you. I need to touch you now. Stay still for me, friend. He placed his hand gently on Ashkar's scales. The thornback's eyes moved slightly to look at him. The creature did not pull away or growl. Something in the human's touch felt different, gentle, careful, like he actually cared. The Vrexian warriors watched in amazement. Ashkar had been hostile to everyone else who tried to examine him. He had snapped at Zena twice, but with this human he was calm. Deho worked methodically. He checked Ashkar's pulse. He listened to the creature's breathing. He examined the scales closely, looking at how the gray color spread across the body. He opened Ashkar's mouth gently and looked at the tongue and gums. He checked the creature's eyes with the light, looking at how the pupils reacted. Every movement was precise and professional. This was not a maintenance worker fumbling around. This was someone who had done this 1,000 times. Someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. 20 minutes passed. The room stayed silent except for Ashkar's labored breathing. Finally, Deho stood up. "It is what I thought," he said. "Metal poisoning. The particles have built up in his system. His kidneys and liver are failing. His blood is not carrying oxygen properly. That is why his scales are gray and why he cannot breathe well." Zena looked at the scanner readings. Her eyes went wide. "You are right. Look at these numbers. How did I miss this?" "You were looking for diseases and infections," Deho said kindly. "Environmental toxins are easy to miss if you are not looking for them. I have seen this before, so I knew what signs to look for." Commander Thale stepped forward. "Can you save him?" Deho met his eyes. "Maybe. The treatment is difficult and painful. I will need to flush the toxins from his system using chelation therapy. It binds to the metal particles so the body can expel them. But the dosage for a creature this size is massive. The process will hurt. There is also a risk of cardiac arrest during treatment." "What are his chances?" Thale asked. "Without treatment, he dies today," Deho said bluntly. "With treatment, maybe 50-50. I will need to monitor him constantly through the night. I will need to adjust the dosage based on how he responds. Any mistake could kill him. But it is his only chance." The warriors looked at each other. 50-50 odds were not good, but they were better than 0. Crick spoke up, his voice quieter now. "Why should we trust you? You are just a maintenance worker. How do we know you really know what you are doing?" Deho looked at him calmly. "You do not know. You have to decide. Trust me and give Ashkar a chance. Or do not trust me and watch him die." Commander Thale knelt beside Ashkar again. He put his hand on the Thornback's head. "What do you think, old friend? Should we let the human help you?" Ashkar's dull eyes moved to look at Deho. Then the Thornback made a small sound almost like a purr. It was weak, but it was clear. Ashkar was saying yes. Thale stood up. He looked at Deho for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Do what you must. Save him if you can. We will get your medical kit from storage." Deho nodded back. "I will need complete silence while I work. No interruptions. No distractions. You can watch through the observation window if you want, but nobody can come in once I start. Agreed?" "Agreed," Thale said. As the warriors left to get the medical equipment, Deho stayed beside Ashkar. He spoke to the creature softly in Korean, words of comfort and promise. The Thornback listened, his breathing still weak but somehow more relaxed. The old maintenance worker was gone. In his place was the combat medic and veterinarian, who had saved hundreds of lives across dozens of worlds. He had tried to leave that person behind, but tonight he would need to be that person again for Ashkar, and maybe in some small way for himself. 3 days passed. Ashkar grew stronger each day. The gray color disappeared completely from his scales. His eyes were bright and alert. He could stand now, though he was still weak. Deho visited him every morning and evening, checking his progress and adjusting his recovery plan. The change at the outpost was remarkable. Warriors who had mocked Deho now nodded respectfully when he passed. Some stopped him to thank him for saving Ashkar. Others asked questions about his past, genuinely curious about his experiences. Crix approached him in the corridor one morning. The young warrior looked uncomfortable. "Deho, I need to speak with you." Deho stopped and waited patiently. Crix struggled to find words. "I was wrong about you. I said terrible things. I mocked you without knowing anything about you. I judged you by what I saw on the surface. That was dishonorable. I apologize." Deho studied him for a moment. Then he smiled slightly. "Apology accepted. We all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Can I ask you something?" Crick said. "Why did you help us? After how we treated you, you had every right to refuse." "Because Ashkar did not mock me," Deho said simply. "He was innocent. He was suffering, and I had the knowledge to help him. That is all that mattered." Crix bowed his head in the Vrexian gesture of respect. "May I ask another question? You said you were a combat medic. What does that mean exactly?" Deho was quiet for a moment. He did not like talking about the war. But these warriors had opened their hearts to him. Maybe it was time to open his own. "It means I was trained to fight and to heal," he said finally. "When humans go to war, we send medical personnel onto the battlefield. We treat wounded soldiers while the fighting continues around us. We save lives under fire. Crix looked shocked. Your healers fight in battles? That seems dangerous. It is very dangerous, Deho agreed. But someone has to do it. Wounded soldiers cannot wait until the battle ends. Every second counts. So we go where we are needed no matter how dangerous. How long did you do this? Crix asked. 20 years, Deho said. The Mars Rebellion, the Titan mining wars, the deep space rescue operations. I saw a lot of young people die. I saved as many as I could, but there were always more. Crix was silent, processing this information. The human he had called weak had spent 2 decades in the worst combat zones Earth had known. I understand now why you wanted to work in maintenance, Crix said quietly. After all that death, you needed to build things instead of watching them break. Deho nodded. Exactly. I was tired of war. I wanted peace. Growing plants. Fixing machines. Simple work for simple days. That is all I wanted. That afternoon, Medical Officer Zena asked Deho to meet her in her office. When he arrived, she had his service record displayed on her screen. I looked you up, she said without apologizing. I had to know who you really were. Deho, your record is extraordinary. 3 commendations for valor. 2 for exceptional medical service. You saved an entire colony ship crew when their medical staff died. Why did you never tell anyone? Deho sat down slowly. Because those medals came with too many memories. Every commendation represents people I could not save. Every honor came at a cost. I did not want to be that person anymore. Zena nodded slowly. I understand, but you should know that what you did for Ashkar was remarkable. Your skills are needed. The galaxy needs healers like you. The galaxy has plenty of healers, Deho said. You are a good medical officer, Zena. You care about your patients. That is what matters. But I did not know what was wrong with Ashkar, Zena protested. You saw it immediately. You have experience with dozens of species. Would you consider teaching me? Sharing your knowledge? Deho considered this. Teaching was different from fighting. Teaching was building, not destroying. Maybe he could do that. All right, he said. I can teach you what I know about treating different species. It might help save lives in the future. Zena smiled. Thank you. This means a lot. On the 5th day after treatment began, something unusual happened. Deho was working in his garden when he heard heavy footsteps behind him. He turned to see Ashkar standing in the doorway of the maintenance bay. The Thornback had walked all the way from the bio-containment facility. Guards tried to guide him back, but Ashkar ignored them. He walked straight to Deho and lowered his massive head. Deho reached up and touched the creature's scales gently. Hello, friend. You are looking much better. Ashkar made a deep rumbling sound, almost like a purr. Then he lay down beside Deho's garden and closed his eyes. He was not leaving. Commander Thale arrived quickly with several warriors. They stared at the scene in shock. This is impossible, Vorn whispered. Ashkar has never left your side, Commander. Not in 15 years. Thale approached slowly. Ashkar, what are you doing? Come back with me, old friend. The Thornback opened one eye to look at Thale. Then he closed it again. He was staying with Deho. Hela spoke up. Commander, I have studied Thornback behavior. They can choose a new guardian in rare circumstances. When someone saves their life, they sometimes transfer their bond. It has only happened a few times in our history. And never to someone outside our species. Thale looked at Deho. The human looked back with confusion. I do not understand. What does this mean? It means Ashkar has chosen you, Thale said slowly. He recognizes you as his guardian now. In our culture, this is sacred. A Thornback's choice cannot be refused. Deho sat down heavily. But I am not Vrexian. I am just a human. Surely this is a mistake. Thornbacks do not make mistakes, Crix said with certainty. They sense what is inside a person. Ashkar sees your warrior spirit. He knows your worth. Thale knelt beside Ashkar and placed his hand on the Thornback's head. I understand, my friend. You have found someone worthy. Someone who saved you when I could not. He looked up at Deho with respect. By our laws and traditions, you are now recognized as a warrior of our people. You have earned the highest honor we can give. The warriors performed the formal salute together. It was a beautiful and solemn gesture. Deho felt something break inside him. Some wall he had built to protect himself from the world. These warriors who had mocked him now called him brother. This sacred creature had chosen him as family. Maybe peace was not about hiding from the world. Maybe it was about finding your place in it. That evening, Commander Thale called a meeting of all outpost personnel. Brexians, humans, and other species gathered in the main hall. Thales stood on the platform with Deho beside him. "Today we witnessed something remarkable," Thala announced. "A Thornback has chosen a human as his guardian. This has never happened before in our history. Some might call it impossible. I call it a lesson." He looked at his warriors. "We judged this man by his appearance. We saw age and injury and assumed weakness. We saw peaceful work and assumed cowardice. We were wrong. Completely wrong." Thale placed his hand on Deho's shoulder. "This human is a decorated war veteran. He fought in battles we never heard of, because we did not pay attention. He saved lives in conditions we cannot imagine. He possesses skills we desperately needed but never bothered to discover. And he asked for nothing except to be left in peace." The hall was completely silent. "We pride ourselves on honor," Thale continued, "but there is no honor in prejudice. There is no honor in judging others without knowledge. From this day forward, let us remember that strength comes in many forms. A warrior is not defined by species or appearance, but by courage, skill, and the will to protect others." He turned to Deho. "You saved my brother. You saved all of us from our own blindness. For this I am eternally grateful." The entire hall erupted in applause. Phyrexian warriors, human workers, and aliens of all kinds showed their respect. Deho stood there, overwhelmed by the response. He had just wanted to help a sick animal. But somehow he had changed hearts and minds. As the meeting ended and people dispersed, Ashkar walked up onto the platform. The Thornback stood beside Deho, protective and loyal. The human and the sacred beast, bonded together in a way that defied tradition but honored something deeper than tradition. They honored truth. Deho looked at Ashkar and smiled. "Well, friend, it looks like my quiet life just got complicated. But I suppose that is all right. Maybe I was getting too comfortable anyway." Ashkar rumbled in response, a sound of contentment and agreement. Together they walked back to the maintenance bay where Deho's garden grew. Peace was not about being alone. Peace was about being accepted for who you truly were. 2 weeks of peace passed. Deho fell into a new routine. He still worked in maintenance, but now Ashkar accompanied him everywhere. The massive Thornback would lie beside him while he fixed pipes or tended his garden. The sight became normal at the outpost. The human and his sacred guardian, working together in quiet harmony. Deho also began teaching Medical Officer Zena about treating different species. They met 3 times a week in the medical bay. He shared techniques he had learned over decades of work. Zena proved to be an excellent student, eager to learn and quick to understand. The change in attitudes at the outpost was remarkable. Humans walked with more confidence now. Other species that had been looked down on felt more respected. The Phyrexian warriors were learning that strength came in many forms. Then, on a quiet afternoon, everything changed. The attack sirens screamed to life. Red lights flashed throughout the outpost. Everyone froze for a moment, then ran to their stations. This was not a drill. This was real. Commander Thale's voice boomed over the speakers. "Battle stations! We have incoming hostile forces. Large pirate fleet detected. All personnel to defensive positions." Deho dropped his tools and ran toward the command center. Ashkar followed closely. The outpost erupted into controlled chaos. Warriors grabbed weapons. Civilians moved toward shelter zones. Ships launched from the hangar to meet the enemy. In the command center, Thale studied the tactical display with grim expression. 40 ships. Maybe more. This is the largest pirate force we have ever seen in this sector. They are hitting the mining operations first, but they will come for us next. Forn pointed to the screen. Our defense fleet is outnumbered 3-1. We need reinforcements. Reinforcements are 18 hours away, Crick said. We need to hold until they arrive. The battle began. Deho watched from the command center as the defense fleet engaged the pirates. Explosions lit up the dark sky. Ships twisted and turned in deadly combat. The outpost weapons opened fire, sending streaks of energy toward the enemy. For an hour they held. Then disaster struck. A pirate bomber broke through the defense line and dropped its payload directly on the medical bay. The explosion shook the entire outpost. Alarms screamed. Smoke poured from the shattered building. Thale's communication device crackled. "Commander, the medical bay is destroyed. Medical Officer Zena is dead. Most of her staff, too. We have wounded, but no one to treat them." The commander's face went pale. Without medical support, wounded warriors would die, and the battle was just beginning. More casualties would come. Many more. Deho felt his heart break. Zena was dead. The kind medical officer who wanted to learn, who had shown him respect, who had become a friend. Gone in an instant, but there was no time for grief. Warriors were dying, Commander, Deho said quietly. I can help. I can set up a field hospital. Thale looked at him with desperate hope. Can you do it? Under combat conditions? I did it for 20 years, Deho said. His voice was different now, harder, more certain. Tell me where the wounded are gathering. I will take care of them. The cargo bay. It is the most protected area we have left. Deho ran, not away from the danger, but toward it. Ashkar stayed beside him, protective and loyal. They reached the cargo bay where wounded warriors were being brought in. Blood covered the floor. Warriors cried out in pain. It was chaos. Deho looked at the scene. For a moment he was back in the war. Back in the worst moments of his life. Then he pushed those feelings aside. These people needed him. He could fall apart later. Listen to me, he shouted with absolute authority. Everyone who can walk, I need you helping. You grab medical supplies from storage. You start organizing the wounded by severity. Critical cases on this side, stable cases over there. Move. People jumped to obey. Something in his voice made it impossible to refuse. This was not the quiet maintenance worker. This was a combat medic who had commanded in impossible situations before. He worked with incredible speed. Checking wounds, stopping bleeding, starting IV lines, stabilizing broken bones. His hands moved with practiced precision. Every movement had purpose. No wasted motion. More wounded came. A warrior with his leg nearly torn off. A human technician with burns covering half her body. An alien species Deho had never treated before, but he figured it out. He always figured it out. The cargo bay shook as explosions hit nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling. But Deho did not stop. He worked through it all. When he needed something, he shouted orders. When someone panicked, he calmed them with a word. When someone said a patient could not be saved, he proved them wrong. Hala came running in, supporting a wounded warrior. Deho, we have a problem. Section 7 lost pressure. 30 warriors are trapped. They will run out of air soon, but we cannot reach them. The corridor is destroyed. Deho looked up from the surgery he was performing. Can we reach them from outside? Through the hull? Yes, but it would require going out in vacuum with no safety line. The hull is damaged and unstable. It is suicide. Deho finished the surgery and moved to the next patient. Find me a spacesuit and a welding kit. I will go. You cannot be serious, Hala protested. You will die out there. Then 30 people will live, Deho said simply. Get me the suit. 10 minutes later, Deho crawled out onto the hull of the outpost. The spacesuit he wore was damaged. The helmet cracked. But it would have to do. Ashkar could not follow him here. The Thornback waited inside, watching through the airlock window with worried eyes. Outside was chaos. Ships battled overhead. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. Debris floated everywhere. The hull beneath him was torn and twisted from the bombing. Deho crawled carefully across the damaged metal. One wrong move and he would float away into space. No rescue possible, but he kept moving. 30 people needed air. He could give them that. He found the breach in Section 7, a massive hole where a support beam should be. Inside, he could see warriors pressed against the far wall, their emergency oxygen running low. Deho pulled out the welding torch and started working. The metal was hot and unstable. Every weld had to be perfect or the whole section would collapse. His hands, steady through hours of surgery, stayed steady now. 20 minutes. That was how long it took. 20 minutes of welding in vacuum while battle raged around him. 20 minutes knowing that one stray shot could kill him instantly. Finally, the breach was sealed. He signaled to the warriors inside. They opened the emergency air supply. Pressure returned to the section. 37 people would live. Deho crawled back to the airlock. When he came inside, Ashkar rushed to him immediately, checking him over with concern. Hala stared at him with amazement. You did it. I cannot believe you did it. People needed help, Deho said, removing the damaged helmet. Now I need to get back to the wounded. How many more came in? The battle lasted 18 hours total. When reinforcements finally arrived and drove off the pirates, Outpost Kalar 7 had survived against impossible odds. The casualties would have been catastrophic without medical support. But Deho had kept working through the entire battle. He performed surgeries under fire. He treated species he had never seen before. He saved lives that should have been lost. When the last patient was stable, Deho finally stopped. He looked around the cargo bay. Blood and supplies covered every surface. Exhausted helpers sat against the walls. But everyone was alive who could be alive. He walked outside into the corridor. His leg hurt badly. The old injury had worsened from the hours of standing and working. Burns covered his arms from the hull welding. His uniform was torn and bloody, but he was still standing. Commander Thale found him there, leaning against a wall with Ashkar pressed close to his side. The commander's armor was scorched and dented from battle. But he was alive. They had all survived. The casualty reports just came in, Thale said quietly. 32 dead, 97 wounded, but the survival rate is the highest we have ever seen in a battle this intense. The medical staff estimates you saved over 60 lives personally. Deho closed his eyes. 32 dead. He knew some of them. He had worked beside them. Good people gone forever. I am sorry I could not save more, he said. Thale put his hand on Deho's shoulder. You saved as many as anyone could. More than anyone else could have. You are a hero, Deho. I am just a medic, Deho said tiredly. I do what I can. That is all. No, Thale said firmly. You are more than that. You are the finest warrior I have ever known. Not because you kill enemies, but because you refuse to let death win. You fight for life itself. That is the truest form of courage. Days later, when the outpost was being repaired and the dead were honored, Commander Thale called another assembly. The entire outpost gathered despite the damage and exhaustion. Thale stood on the platform with Deho beside him. Ashkar lay at the human's feet, loyal as always. 2 weeks ago I told you we had been wrong about humans, Thale said. I told you that strength comes in many forms. Today you all saw that truth proven. When our medical bay was destroyed, this human did not hide. He ran toward danger. He worked for 18 hours straight, saving lives under fire. He went out onto the hull in a damaged spacesuit to save trapped warriors. He asked for nothing in return. The commander turned to Deho. You told me once that you were tired of war, that you just wanted to fix things.